Hi,
Hello, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. It's so nice to see you, Doug, and to welcome all of our guests today. Today we're continuing on with our speaker series, and this week we have Doug Doolittle. He is going to speak to us a little bit about I'm a Kind Man, but he's also going to introduce himself and how he became involved in the work that he's doing. So I've known Doug for a little bit, but we'll get into that after. And we're so thrilled and honored, Doug, really, truly, that you're here with us today. And so you have, you have some time to talk about what you do, your kind man, and we're also going to have you back two more times in the evening. So that's going to be absolutely fantastic. We've had lots and lots of requests for I'm a Kind Man to have a better understanding of what it is and what you're doing. And I know you've done tons and tons of work with the program, and I followed you anyhow throughout all these years of all the things and the wonderful things that you've done since, like, I don't know, almost 10, 12 years, I think, that
yeah,
I've
something like
known
that.
you.
Yeah,
So yeah, I'm just so honored and thrilled that you're here. So do you want to introduce yourself, Doug, and then from there you can take it away, and we'll join you back in a little while.
sure. Thank you, Sherry. So, hello, Sego. Skonigogo, Lajin Hawashungyats. Doug Doolittle is the name that was given to me at birth. Welcome everybody to this. And for me, it's a great opportunity to be able to share these things um, just my passion has always been to help, always been a helper. And I think it's about 11 years ago, I took the I Am a Kind Man, the Kije Ishnabe Nin program to help support a fellow uh, employee. And it just kind of progressed into that. And I seen how much and how successful this program could be. It For me, it's a living entity. It's never the same program twice. It's based on the Anishinaabe seven grandfather teachings, but I like to also think of them as teaching fundamental teachings that we all have had. We've been taught, maybe not in quite the same way, but generally within the same fashions. So, like for instance, the first one would be wisdom. The next is love. The next week was respect, bravery, honesty, humility, and truth. So we go through all these modules. That's 7 weeks. It's about 2 hours a night, and we go through this, and it's an interactive forum. It's not just me speaking. I like to engage and have the men to engage with us on this because they have made the program what it is. Yes, I have taken the training and it's had expanded into something that's bigger than it was when I first started. And it was always through the help of engagement through the men that have come over I think it's been 9 years now that I've been doing this. For the first 5 years, I did it every Tuesday night. It was always my favorite night of the week, other than Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. That's what I tell the guys, anyways. And I've graduated 753 men through the program, and maybe 30 guys, 30 men didn't finish it to get their diploma at the end. So I think that's a pretty good success rate within this program. And I do this through Brantford Native Housing, as it's a free service that our social services department within it would do this, and it would be free for the men because a lot of men didn't have resources to partake in this, especially with other diversion programs out there that for them to qualify for reduced sentence if it was brought through the court systems, which a lot of the guys are, probation and parole, to learn about what it means to be a kind man. So quite a high graduation rate. I'll give myself a pat on the back, and all the men that have come that been part of this program. 2 years ago, our social development side of Brantford Native Housing came to an end. But I'm also housing support for our men's transition house, which is called Galekwa House. And it's a transition house that houses up to 4 men for a year, and they can come in and get themselves back in line from homelessness, addictions, whatever those things that led them to homelessness. So they can come in and do that. So I kind of incorporated that piece, and I was grandfathered in to keep this program alive because we do service a lot of men through Brantford Native Housing. So it's quite remarkable that we've been able to do this. I'm really proud of Brantford Native Housing and the men, and obviously myself, for being able to do this. So you have to forgive me. I'm not really the Zoomy type of person. My passion is when I am in the same room with these guys, and the energy that encompasses, I feel their energy, and I feel their apprehensions at the beginning of the programs, and I try to work with that. So all I can see is me, so I'm trying to work with my own energy. So forgive me for this. So yes, and so I've been kind of over the years, it's just been transitioning into something that's even bigger than it was, and it's been done through the Federation of Indian Friendship Centers, but I've kind of branched out of that a little bit because of our social development out of Brantford Native Housing came to an end, so their participation in this kind of came to an end. But because of the years of experience that I had with this, they asked me to just keep rolling with this, and especially it's hard, especially now, like with the COVID thing, the lockdowns over the past year. It's a bit of a struggle because a lot of our vulnerable men that I've been working with don't have laptops, they don't have cell phones, or they just don't have that peace inside them to be able to sit and do this on a screen. So it's been quite a challenge. So we can only do the best we can within this. So I'm really looking forward to the moment that we can come together back into the group setting, because for me that's really the where a lot of the spirit happens, is when we are together. So I want to first say that yes, I've been doing this for about 11 years. 5 years, I worked every Tuesday night without fail, just 7 weeks, and I'd start again. 7 weeks, I'd start again. It wasn't until a few years ago that I decided that maybe that was a little bit too much for me. That's because I also co-created another group. It's called Hatni Goa, so Big Father, Great Father, and it's a father program that teaches men how to become great fathers or great male role models within themselves and within the community and within their family elements. So, I did a lot of evening works, and it was just getting a little bit hard on me, getting a little bit older, working daytime and then working the evening times 2 or 3 nights a week. So I kind of had to slow that down a little bit and start enjoying a little bit of the fruits of my own labor. But I'm always on call. My phone basically goes quite a bit with guys that are in distress who have learned that or have felt that I'm worthy of their issues and that I can help them and direct them through that. So with the kind men, I'll just read to you a little bit of the foundation, the beginning of it. So the overall purpose of these sessions is to engage the men in our communities to speak out against all forms of violence and abuse against women in our communities. It is based on Anishinaabe Seven Grandfather teachings and will educate men to address issues of abuse towards women, to reestablish traditional responsibilities by acknowledging that our teachings have never tolerated violence and abuse towards women, and to inspire men to engage other men to get involved and stop the abuse, to support Aboriginal men who choose not to use violence. So that's the kind of like the fundamentaling of it. But it's also I throw in there too because within the parameters of this through probation and parole, family violence, any other the service providers that we out there that help men and women in abusive relationships, and how are they going to maintain or get out in a proper, healthier way. It's not always the men who are the abusers in relationships. So I had to kind of relook at that, because some guys that were being mandated through the courts, through probation and parole, um, um, still had to do this because they're part of the situation in the home. And it could have been just the guys kind of like protecting himself from their partners. And when the police are involved, the guys do end up getting charged and having to go to the court systems and fighting for their innocence. So my program is part of that recidivism, is part of that thing where the diversion program. Sorry, the diversion programs, so that they can come and take my program for the 7 weeks, and it's free based, as I mentioned before, and that they can come and do this and learn about this abusive behaviors. But again, I lost a few guys because of what I was just saying, that not all men are the abusers within a relationship. And this program was geared to those words, that the men are the abusers and that the men need the help and they have to do all the work. But that's not always true. So again, when I have to address the beginning of the program, I always make mention that there's going to be some guys in this room are not that. And sometimes guys may feel that they aren't, but might be. Their training process from little guys being taught by older brothers or uncles, or their grandfathers, the grandparents, and their dads, on how they're supposed to behave and to navigate through partnerships within our native cultures. Because of residential school and that colonialism, that family breakdown happened, and guys really don't know where they belong anymore within that, because we're not being taught those things. Some of that was taken away and wasn't not being able to be given properly in a healthy way to our young boys and as they grew up, or the stereotypical idealizations that men don't have feelings, men need to be the strong, not to cry, that sort of thing. So they suppress all those feelings, and then when they get into a relationship, they don't know how to properly bring these out, and it could come out in terms of abuse, of mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, and sexual. So through this program, I tried to help them to understand what those things are and those trigger points for them through the course of these 7 modules that we go through. Generally, when the men do start to come to this program, and we do our introductories every week, and we give a little bit about ourselves, why we're here, mainly, especially if they've been mandated because of the court system, one of the first things that they say is, I'm here because I have to be here. I don't want to be here. But after the first 2 weeks of learning a little bit about their own wisdom of why they're there and the component on what is love, they started to realize that maybe this will be something and will work for me. So I tend to, after the third week, when we do our check-ins again, these guys who have said, I'm only here because I have to be here, are generally the first guys that are there and waiting for the program. And each week they talk more and more about, can I bring my brother? Can I bring my friend to the program as well? So it does grow, even just by attendance, just by the guys that do come in. So it's also based on spirituality. So one of the things that I personally um, had to go through my own healing process, and I used the kind man in most of my day-to-day stuff as well. Well, as I was going through my healing journey with myself because of residential school and colonialism, and I too fell into some forms of behavior, and I wasn't really abusive that I thought of. I wasn't really emotional abuser or a mental abuser. At least I didn't think so. But when I started to go through this, I started to identify some certain things about myself and qualities that put me into those categories. I wasn't a physical abuser. I was not a sexual abuser. I was not a spiritual abuser as well. But the mental and emotional things I was doing because I learned at a very young age through the teachings of my mom on how to love a female. I was never able to obtain that properly in healthy ways, and I realized through this program that I was part of that problem. I had to look at myself because I was a common denominator in like 5 failed relationships, and my abusive patterns were more like, I'll do everything for you and you don't have to do anything for me. I will be the big guy. I will take care of everything. I'll do my own laundry. I'll do the grocery shopping. I'll do the grass cutting. I'll do the vacuuming. I'll do the dishes. This is how I show my love. But don't do anything for me. Because I was taught that I wasn't worthy of being properly loved, I guess. And I wouldn't be able to take that in. And I couldn't even through that, I realized the unworthiness that I felt about love and not being able to have that I wasn't worthy of it because I had to keep fighting and trying to prove myself, which was really a setup for failure for me. And I had to look at that and I had to come to terms with that. So this program really helps me with anything that I still am going through. I'm sure that I'm going to be healing and being on these healing journeys for a while with inside of myself. So I can't, what I'm saying is I can't help you. I can only help you as far as I've been helped myself. So the more that I go through this, the more that I'm learning about myself, the more that I'm healing myself, and the more that I can give and help. I guess that's kind of like the benefit of this program for me, because as I said, for me, it's a living entity. It just grows and grows and grows. I don't think it has any ending to growth to this program. It modifies itself. It becomes what it needs to be for the men who do come to the program. And yeah, so, and I really like it. One of the biggest things that I say, like for myself, is men need men. Men need men to be able to talk to be able to heal with, to sing with, to dance with, to feel comfortable being in our own skins. Sometimes we can't do that in front of women or our children or our elders or older peoples within our communities or even within our own families. So we do need to have these kind of programs so that we can really learn that men are okay to express feelings. We're okay to talk about our feelings. We're okay to sit in our feelings without fear of judgment, fear of ridicule, um, and that sort of thing. So I kind of put that out there at the beginning. I try to make them as comfortable as I can. By also, one of the things I do is you will learn more about me than I will about you. I'm an open book when it comes to this. I use my own experiences of who I am in every aspect of this program. When the program, from the beginning of the program, you know me as Doug. When you end this program, we have a great meal if we're together in the same room, and you'll know exactly who I am. So I like to build a proper foundation within this. Like I can't lie to you, because I don't want to be caught in a lie. And when we're going through this, I don't want to have mistrust within this, because all I want is for the men to heal, to look inside themselves. What is it that I can do? What can I do for myself so that I can expand out, so that I can be better? So this thing about the beginning of this was about it is based on the 7 grandfather teachings and will educate men to address issues of abuse towards women. I add into that also the abuse that they do to themselves, how they internalize abuse, how they sit in the agony of abuse, the emotion of abuse, and whatever those abusive patterns are, whether it's addictions of drugs and alcohol, sex, running around, just there's all kinds of forms of that. And what do we do to ourselves? How do we abuse ourselves? Where I said I was not feeling worthy, I would abuse myself by not taking even a thank you or a gratitude from somebody. Oh, somebody say, "Hey, Doug, you do a great job." Oh, no, that's okay. No, glad to help. Glad to help. That's how unworthy I felt. Where I couldn't even say, "You're welcome. I'm glad I could help you." So giving myself a pat on the back was unheard of. Allowing someone else to pat me on the back, no, I couldn't do that. Those were my own abusive patterns, and what has happened to me over the course of my upbringing, and even as I became into my adulthood, I still did that, and it took a long time for me to feel comfortable in my own skin to be able to say, "You're welcome," and I'm worthy of a thank you. I'm worthy of those things. So again, I contribute this program to helping me as I started to go on through all this. A lot of this stuff is it's one of the things that I do is I've advocated always that all men can come to my program. It's not just for Indigenous males. I have opened it up to all males because we all have spirit. We all have these same fundamental issues of internalized abuse, externalized abuse. And why can't we all sit as men? I'm not saying that Indigenous men are not worthy of just having Indigenousness programs. I'm not saying that, but I wanted to open it up so that we all feel that I can help my non-Indigenous friend watch his children, that I can help him, I can help other cultural men to do this. So I've also incorporated some other forms of ways of life within this. So it's not just Ongwai or Anishinaabe teachings. It's opened up to everybody. So if there is someone from a culture that that I don't know, I'll ask about that. So what do you do in your culture? How can I address you? What is something that I can help to put your spirit within this group for the time being. So that's something that I do. So it's very inclusive um, to all men. Um, I have always wanting to learn more and more about what other cultures have done, what they do within this. I am I am part Anishinaabe, and I'm part Ongwe Um, Proud it's somewhere in my lineage. There's non-native within that, so I actually have a little bit of that. So I like that idea to have inclusiveness within this. Also for myself, I have traveled the world trying to heal myself and trying to find out what fits within my own geographical area, which is Six Nations. For a long time, I was mentored under an old one of the old people. I don't really call them elders in our culture. They're kind of like the old people. Apparently, I'm getting up there, so I can relate to that. But the more that he was teaching me and showing me the certain ceremonies and aspects of being male, I started to notice something that was happening to me. I started to take on some of the anger, some of the shame, some of the darkness within what colonialism and residential school had done to our older people, the shame, the blame, and that sort of stuff. And I had to, I was bringing that home, and I was also bringing it out. So I used the Kijé program, the I Am a Kind Man program, some of these aspects of my own humility to realize that I'm also now doing these things. So I had to look at myself through this program to go, what can I do better for myself using some of these modules so that I can help out better. So I started to travel a little bit more. I started to immerse myself into other cultures. I went to South America. I've been to so many different areas, learning different ceremonial practices, ways of teaching, the ways of connection to creation, the connection to myself, the connection to my own abuse that I wanted to disconnect from. So I traveled around and I took little bits from all over the place and put them inside of me. That's when my real healing began. Not so much, I guess it wasn't the real healing because I started that from the Six Nations, from my elder old guy. That started it, but it wasn't completing my healing inside of me. I was still feeling distress and still feeling angry and upset and unworthy. And then I started to do that, looking around at different cultures and acknowledging it. And I was picking up pieces and putting it inside of me. And some things didn't fit, so I would set that back on the ground. So it kind of reminds me of those teachings that when our Haudenosaunee people came into, it would be like we take our minds off and set them on the table. And when we talk, we can pick from other people's minds some information, things that works good for us, and then we can do the same thing because some things I'll know that others don't know, and vice versa. So it's kind of shared information. And at the end of it, you just pick your brain up and put it back in your head, right? So that nobody gets to take everything from you ever. It's always here. So I started to do that, started to acknowledge that about myself. So my really healing began when I started to venture out, because I am a very complex human male because of all these other bits and pieces who I'm made up of, and even culturally and not just culturally. I grew up off the reserve. I didn't grow up in our traditional sense out there. I grew up in the church, um, and did not have any knowledge about being Indigenous, Native at all, other than the fact that because my skin was darker, uh, the other kids kind of knew that I was different, and I would get picked on. And so even in through school, that abusive qualities began. And so I really I had to go back that far, right back into my early grade schools, and even looking at those things, not just family, but in the education system, and what was happening to me. So even my last name, for crying out loud, it's Doolittle. So like I was born in 1960. That was a long time ago. And in the 60s, this movie came out, late 60s, was called Dr. Doolittle. And for me, it was kind of the most crazy, wonderful, magical, mystical movie I had ever seen. I mean, not that I seen much TV at that time, but I did see this. And I was just like, oh my God, this is wonderful. Here's this Doolittle, and he can talk to the animals and he can hear the animals, have conversation. And I thought this was awesome. And then the next school day, I got to school, and a couple of kids had brought their pets and wanted me to speak to them because they knew that I was a Doolittle. And because I couldn't understand what these rabbits and hamsters were thinking or saying. And then I got beat up. So again, like there's so much of this has happened through the course of time. And I'm just a very small story, and thousands of stories out there. But I also had to look at that, and I had to kind of let that go as well. I had to heal that within inside of myself, because I didn't want to be a Doolittle. I didn't want to be, back then we were Indians. I didn't want to be one of those because we played cowboys and Indians. So I always wanted to be a cowboy, so I wouldn't be identified as that. So again, through the Kijé program, I was able to look at those aspects with all these modules, and able to fix and repair some of that old business, those old triggers that kind of brings itself to who we are today. So I've come a long way, and I'm really looking forward to going even further with inside myself through different forms of ceremony that I do, wellness things that I'm doing. So yeah, it's for me. This is a passion. I really enjoy it. It's never been, oh, I gotta go to Kijé tonight. It's not like that ever. I'm always, I can't wait for Kijé to begin. And right now, I'm just can't wait for Kijé to begin again. So hopefully these lockdowns and these measures and these color coded gets us back into being able to have our healthy spaces for our men to come together and to heal. Face, what else more can I say about this? So, hello. Thank you. So I do look forward to doing this, and I'm looking forward to expanding this as well, and to help more and more males out there. I've also done it for teens. I've been in some of the schools in the Halton region, and have done the Kijé for teens. I believe it was a huge success. Done it a few times. And yeah, so I'm really looking forward to sharing the little bit of knowledge that I'm holding with other people, with other men.
Mm-hmm. And it's difficult too, right? You know, like when men are looking for healing path, it's always nice, like you said earlier, men need a community. Men need other men to have these conversations with. But society has placed such barriers on men to share their feelings, to share
Mhm.
what they're going through. And society does such just beats us up all the time, right? Like you're not man enough, or you're man up. Don't be so emotional,
Mhm.
right? And and it really puts us in a spot where when you are trying to be vulnerable and show your emotions, people kind of like, whoa, this is a little bit too much information for me, and I don't know how to handle it.
Mhm.
Wonderful thing about I'm a Kind Man is because it shows all those wonderful things that we're trying to break down those systems of colonization, right? To know that had healthy, this a long, long time ago, all our men were healthy because they were looking after our community. And, it's going back to that piece, where, I liked when you said that I'm a kind man is really taking an awful lot of things from the 7 grandfather teachings and really looking at that and really talking about that, because you said it was a 13-week program or a 12-week program?
7.
7-week program. So it goes along with the 7 teaching, right? And I know that you're going to come back with us to share 2 more, wisdom and love.
Right.
And that's really, really important. So, even from your perspective of learning all these things that you had to relearn as a man, from learning some of the things that you learned from your mom, that also is very, not necessarily trying, but it is trying when you're trying to do this on your own. So who were some of your influencers, or who was some of the people that you went to go and talk to when you were going through some of your healing journey as well?
You? Well, that's true though. When I first started with family group conferencing, being that going into the training for all that, you really helped me to see some of those things. So it's not always just men. There's women people out there, women folk out there too, that we can take some goodness from and put it into us in good ways. One of the biggest things that I with that, especially with women, I'll get to the men in a bit, but the women, because of my training from my mom and how to love, and that I wasn't worthy of it. And when I started feeling worthy of it, I wanted more of it because it felt so good, right? So I had to really be careful with that, because I could take and take and take, and then I wouldn't be giving out because I feel so worthy. Oh, please, please. So now I'm not going to give you anything. So I had to really try to figure out that balance within that, because when you start changing that focus, you can actually become a bigger abuser without even knowing it. It just happens. It's like finding something new and you're all so excited about it. You want to share it and spread it, but you don't want to hear anything else. So it's kind of like that. Um, one of the biggest, my my greatest teacher was one of my grandsons, and we were talking about. I was trying to the next module was love coming up, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to talk about? Like, because like I said, it's always new and stuff. So what can I pick out? So I was picking him up to deliver him to his dad, because the mom and dad weren't together. So I was the go guy, the grandpa that went, got the kids and delivered them and take them back again every weekend. And so here, my son, his dad, was kind of like a womanizer, handsome, good looking, liked to go out there and play the field. But here, this young boy was watching his dad do that. So I went to pick him up to bring him home one day, and he was in the shower, and he comes out, and I go, "Oh, buddy, come give Papa a hug." And he comes up and gives me a hug, and I went, "Oh, geez, you smell good. What's that?" He goes, "That's Axe." I went, "Why do you need Axe?" He goes like this, "So I can get the ladies." He was only 8 years old. So here's this training program by his dad. But dad was a good dad, had his kids and wanted to share everything, but maybe a little bit too much in some cases, right? Because sometimes boys need to be boys. But here's this little boy, 8 years old. He's got Axe on because he's going to get the ladies. So there's that wonkiness. And I started to think about that. So the following week, I go to pick him up to bring him back to his dad. And he's sitting in the backseat of my car. And I was thinking about love. And I said, B, what's love? And there was dead silence in the car. And I checked the rearview mirror and took a look, and his eyes were open. He wasn't sleeping. And I said, "Did you hear what I said?" And he goes, "Yes, Papa." I said, "So what's love?" Dead silence again. And I go, I said, "Can you hear me back there?" "Yes, Papa, I can hear you." "So tell me, what is love? He goes, Papa, I don't have a girlfriend. And I went, oh my God. So this, what I said about this, I'm out to get the ladies and stuff, that was his wonkiness about what love is. And I said, boy, wasn't thinking about you having a girlfriend. And he goes, oh, thank goodness, Papa, because I really don't have a girlfriend. And I said, so what is love? And this is what he said to me. He said, it's how I feel about you. And I went, oh my God, exactly. Because sometimes even me as grown-ups, we really don't even have an understanding what love is. And here is a voice of an 8-year-old when I took all the weirdness from it, I guess, in his mind, that he was able to articulate it. It's the way I feel about you. Right? So that I was able to use that within it. So he was one of my biggest teachers within this program. So yeah, like this program for me, and I said it's a living entity. And every week I think about it, and then creation just goes, well, why don't we talk about this? How about I present this person to you? And you can have a conversation. You'll go, oh crap, can I use that for my program? So there's been so many. Like I said, there's been over 700 men have come. 700 men plus has gifted me with the knowledge to run this program. So they all have been. My father, we had a bad relationship for a long time because of residential school and colonialism, through his own unhealthy journey. But over bits of time, as he started getting older and he knew that I was doing these things, he started to see me different than just this little boy who came and changed his whole entire life, and he wasn't able to do the things that he dreamt of as a young fella himself. I was the burden because I was the oldest. But when I started to do this and started talking to my dad more and more about these approaches of the Kijé program, he started to also think about himself. And he would give me these little words of wisdom. They'd come out of nowhere. And I'd be going, whoa, whoa, And so I was able to pick him up a little bit, even through that unhealthiness of our relationship, which helped me to grow, helped my group to grow. And it also began to help my relationship with my dad to grow. So my dad was my grandson, and my dad are really the two biggest components of my being mentors of this program.
And it's so important to have, like an awful lot of us who are Indigenous also come with trauma from years and years and years of trauma. And also through residential school, we learned from last week some of the residential school survivors and thrivers of some of the experiences that they had. And then it transcends into their current relationships. And, and it's really interesting to know that, not to know, but like just the oppression that an awful lot of our men faced during the treaties, during the settling of Canada. And that whole sense of helplessness, because now you cannot help your community, you cannot protect your family, you cannot protect your women. And we saw the constant abuse and oppression from the Indian agent, as well as the federal government, right? And having that constantly. And then when we had the forced elections in 1924, that all the hereditary chiefs now are gone, and you must put in a leader and the counselors. So that's also an oppressive system that we've lived with for years and years. And so sometimes when I look at some of these things that are happening, I look at that. I look at those oppressive systems, and I look at how we've lived under those oppressive systems for such a long time. When we go to residential school, we heard from last week when our parents and our grandparents went to residential school, certain things that were happening in there, that they couldn't even express their own emotion, right? That if they were sad, if they were happy, if they missed their mom, certain things would happen to them. And so it suppresses all those emotions. And so until you come into that spot where I can't deal with this any longer, I got to look after my heart. You know, and how do you go about going and doing that when there's so many years of that DNA that has been traumatized, right? And so now we're not talking about humans, we're talking about what's buried deep in what we're born into, to really start looking at that. And that's what I've loved about the program as well, is because not only does it talk about getting back those seven teachings, right, but also really delving deep into our own feelings as humans, as of men, things like that. So somebody's at my door.
Yes,
timing.
it's definitely a big learning curve for myself, and you know, for the men who have come to this program. So I remember I was talking about the worthiness of taking a pat on the back, and I couldn't. And for a long time, even through this program, I would do the same thing. I was, nah, it's okay. Like, Doug, you did great. You helped me out. No, it wasn't me. It was you. And I couldn't even take my own part in that. So again, but here's what happened. I was in Brantford Hospital. I was there for my daughter, and she was going through going for a test for something, and I decided to just go walk around. And I was in the bottom floor of the hospital, and I was walking down this white hallway. It was nothing but whiteness in there. And all of a sudden, this guy walks out of a door that I couldn't even see. It just all of a sudden, there's this guy standing there, and he looks at me, he goes, Doug, is that you? And he comes running down this hallway, and I'm like, I kind of thought I recognized him, but I didn't know who he was. I did not remember. But he was a guy from my program, the Kijé program. He come up and he just gave me this hug. And he said, I want to thank you for everything that you've done for me. And I said, what did I do? He goes, well, if it wasn't for your program, I wouldn't have found my own place to live. I would not be in a relationship that I'm in right now. And it's the best relationship ever. And look, I'm working at the hospital. I have a great job. I owe this all to you. And I went, how about we share that? How about you owe this to me and to you? Right. So those are great affirmations for this program, that it does work for people, for lots of guys who really want to heal from their traumas and their pains of who they are. So that was a good thing for me.
Mm-hmm. I love that, Doug. And, you know, I told you before that, you know, I'm going to let you and Sherry handle it, unless, of course, I feel called to come on. So I felt called. And it's, you know, it's because there's a lot of amazing messages here. And I just, you know, this is going to be an opportunity for us to just say, it's these programs like Doug's are extremely important. And Kelly had mentioned here, I wish the government, you know, supported more people and groups like yours. Thank you, Kelly. You know what? It's so important, because this is why Grandmother's Voice is doing this. You know, we're a grassroots organization that started by just, you know, really wanting to support Indigenous voices and empower and protect the knowledge and the people that are carrying the wisdom of our knowledge. And, you know, in saying that, this came up for me because I constantly do self-help as well. As much as you know, I don't know, I love it. I love being a better Jody for other people, but more for myself. And so this is why I surround myself with the people that I want to be like. And, you know, Doug, from the minute I met you, and maybe this is, you know, part of my hairstyling, you know, way and experience, is that I can tell people's energy from miles away. And maybe it's because I got to, you know, cover people with, right, that too. I do look at people's hair. I don't judge. I just look at them and, you know, wish I had my fingers in them, in their hair. But, you know, I would cover people with a cape, and it was just me and their head. Right. And it's really hard to lie, you know, to not show your true self in the expression of your face. If you have other things you can do, like me, I use my hands a lot and my body, and, you know, so, but anyway, in all of this, I love to work on myself, to be a better me and healthier and everything. So what's come up for me in a couple of this is past my my conversations before. James Allen. You know who James Allen is, right? This to me, and this goes to why does the government not support programs like this? This is going to be my Jody kind of, irritated conversations, because I'm one of those people that really look at the mainstream, and I look at all of these new ways of, mainstream healing and holistic ways. And I really would love for people to give credit where credit is due. And so this, just this gentleman from like the 1864 to like, actually, he died the year my great grandmother enfranchised from Six Nations. So anyway, in his thought, I'm just going to share two little excerpts from it, because what you say you do, Doug, is to remind men how to live from their heart. Okay, this guy put it into words. And we were, in the middle of colonization during that time, and wiping out and genocide of our people. And people like this exploited, well, not exploited, I mean, they could have, but explained it in their way, right? Through words, mind is the master power that molds and makes, and man is mind, and everywhere he takes, the tool of thought and shaping what he wills, brings forth 1,000 joys, 1,000 ills. He thinks in secret and it comes to pass. Environment is but his looking glass. Hence the young boy, right? That says, I gotta be the, it just drives me berserk. Okay. That these, people from, and I don't mean these people in a disrespectful way for him, because he shared so many, ways for people to understand how to live in a good way. And so I appreciate that, they use the language. But I really am, and I think that a big part of what Grandmother's Voice is now is empowering and reminding people that these teachings and these understandings have been here for many, 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 many centuries. And so it's time now to step aside, give the space to people, and get the government to start waking up to supporting our programs and our intellect like it deserves to be there. Right. Because I believe that that's such an important piece. So thanks for letting me interrupt your program.
I'm glad you did.
I'm going to hold these up because you're speaking of these. And I thought, some other people here were mentioning just how, how excited they were about, I guess, everything that you're doing and how wonderful you are, and talking about the, damage of colonization. And these are conversations that and topics that you can come back to, Doug, if you don't mind, and you can enter in the comments on our Facebook page. But, the grandfather teachings, for those of you who are not familiar with Indigenous knowledge, I thought that might be a good way to move forward and bring it into talking about and sharing that you're going to be with us again here on March 8th, Monday evening, 6 to 8, and then also April 7th, doing more in-depth, talking about love, and I think it was wisdom.
Wisdom and love, yes.
Yes, and I'm really excited for that. But if you could just briefly talk about our grandfather teachings. I was gifted these from Duke Redbird, like in several years ago, and I think just to kind of let people know what the 7 grandfather teachings are would be fun.
I did mention that, but I'll do it again for you.
Oh, all of them, I mean? No, because I know they're in your program, but I didn't know that you listed them all.
But that's okay. So you got wisdom for the program. Wisdom, I always said, is when they come, especially because it's not just Indigenous men that come to this program. I've opened it up. Wisdom, they have made a choice to come. So they use their wisdom to come, because if they didn't, maybe the charges would stick, more bad things could happen for them. So they came, so they used their wisdom. And I always kind of empower them within that. So here you go, right? And then the next one, we talk about love, where, what is it? That's a hard conversation. Week 2 is probably the hardest of it all, because then we have to really look at ourselves and what does that even mean? There you have different aspects of love. I love my cat. I love my mom. I love my brother. I love my sister. I love my cousins. I love my grandparents. I love my friends. They're all different levels of love. But How do you love a partner? That's something that we really don't have a full understanding about because we watch so much unhealth within our families because of colonialism, because of residential school and that disconnect of heart from themselves. So trying to help them to see that, okay, your heart is here and your head is here and we're disconnected. So what is love? So bring your head to your heart and your heart to your head. So let's meet and talk about that. Have you loved? Have you been in love? And what does it mean? Usually when I ask the questions, everybody puts their hands up. Yes, I've loved. Yes, I've been in love. And then when I explain it, they're going, maybe I've never been in love. It's just the kind of like the roadmap of having a relationship. There's no real information about what is love and how do I feel. What does being in love mean? So again, like those are those things, those questions that we ask at the beginning, and it's not about minimizing a man's feelings about it, but opening their minds up. Let's go. Okay, let's talk about it now. Because usually everyone puts their hands up, and then when I ask them, what is it? Crickets start because they don't know how to articulate it. They can't be an 8-year-old boy anymore and say, it's how I feel about you. So those are the first 2 weeks. And then we go into respect. So we learn about what respect is about yourself, about another person, and about how do you respect your own feelings of where you're at. So how do you respect the fact that I'm an abuser? Because you do have to come to terms with that. So you have to respect that about yourself. You don't have to like it, but if you respect it, then you can change the way you're feeling about that. The next one would be bravery. Well, having a harder conversation. What is abuse? Have you been an abuser? Be brave and speak it out. How has the abuse been put into you? What happened to you that you have decided that you're either going to give abuse or you're going to take abuse? So be brave. And then we go through that with honesty and humility. Just knowing what is a healthy relationship, talking about healthy relationships and what does that look like for you. So we go through all this. And then the last one is the truth. And that's where we kind of tie everything together with all these segments. And what is your truth? And let's talk about your truth now. Is it the same truth that you had coming in 7 weeks ago? Or do you now have a different truth that you can look at within inside yourself? As males, that usually happens. And usually I get, when they have to fill out the evaluation forms on their facilitator and stuff. I've never thought of myself the way that Doug has helped me to think about myself. Pretty simple, actually, but it's huge. So huge. One of the things that I say to these guys is, for myself, like when I was young, I was an abuser of myself, alcohol and drugs and the whole bit. I did all that stuff, running around, not paying attention, but I worked every day. I finished school. I worked every day, but I was a Friday night to Sunday morning warrior of alcohol and drugs. And as I started getting older and having children, I started to go like, a lot of things that I was putting inside my body were not sticking there. And I was trying to be a nice guy, but I wasn't being really nice to myself. I was just being nice outward, not being able to take anything in. So when I started to look at that, so in order for me to begin to heal this big gaping hole that was inside of me, I had to put something in it that would stick. So I called it my sticky bun spirit. So I went to a ceremony and something stuck. I went and sat with the old guy and something stuck. I went to South America, something stuck. I sat with my grandma, something stuck. I sat with Sherry, something stuck. And Jody, even you, one day that we met on that walk and we talked, something that you said to me stuck. I can't tell you what it is because I haven't thought about it, but it's stuck inside of me. So this hole began to get smaller and smaller. So now it's just a pinhole. So in order for anyone to heal, and especially men, We have to figure out how to put proper things inside of us so that our spirit becomes one with ourselves and not so fragmented out there, not even acknowledging we even have one. So that's, again, why these 7 components are really important for us.
So amazing. On that note, Doug, you're awesome. I love that. I love you. So this is a question that came from Ellie, and I really appreciate like when people start thinking of other people here. This is, what's so great. What do the young men in our community need to hear right now? And so on that, if you could finish up with that.
Hello, Ellie. I know Ellie quite well as well. Actually, when I sent her a print of a T-shirt I had was a bunch of kayaks coming together, nose to nose, with nobody in them, but just different colors of kayaks. And I thought about that. And so, what do young men need to hear? They need to hear that it's okay to heal. That it's okay to cry. It's okay to talk about things. It's okay as men sitting into a circle and just talking about our crap, talking about how we were abused, how it makes me feel, and not to be judged by it. Sitting in those circles, I truly believe in the power of the circle. So we come together in that, and so that we're together in all this. Men need to know, especially young men need to know that they are worthy of who they truly are, not of the facade of education or family or religious values. There's much more to it than that. Those are components, but we're much more than that. We're bigger. We're part of creation. We need to remember what our own true selves are in healthy ways. So,
yeah. And I appreciate that too. Grandmother Renee always says, remember your instructions, right? And that's what it is. And those instructions are start with the self-love. I just wanted to, Kelly had asked about wondering about the damage of colonialism on our two-spirited people and their relationships as well. And Kelly, I just wanted to share with you and all of the other viewers that we have another 3 weeks going with our speaker series, actually 4 weeks if we think of right into March. We have some of our intellects that are reaching out that would really love to be a part of this. But I think the second week of March is our two-spirited topic, and we have Lyndon George coming to share some time with us on Tuesday the 2nd, and then on the 4th we also have Sean Johnson, and they're both very influential two-spirited speakers that are just so empowering. And I'm sure not that Doug can't speak to that, but we are running out of time, and so please join us then and share that time with us. We also have this Thursday we have Jane Burning, amazing, and she'll also be doing extended workshops. And again, we just want to acknowledge that this was an opportunity for Grandmother's Voice. We came across some funding and a supporter, a sponsor, and Skana Family Child Care Center that's really supporting the work that Grandmother's Voice is doing in Halton in our community. It's very important that people know that just because we live in a region doesn't mean other people don't work here, travel here, take part in here, have relations here. So this is just where we are coming from, Sherry and I. But this work is for all of us in all of our communities. Yeah. Very important that we do this. And so I think that's it. Next week we have Gail Whitlow and Joel White Duck. They'll be speaking to the medicines, to awaken the medicines within. And then we also have Tala Tutusas and Isaac Murdoch showing up. And again, Doug Doolittle with his workshops. And then even we're still waiting to confirm the exact date for Duke Redberg to come and share some of his poetry. And so who knows, we might just keep going and going. And next thing you know, we'll be on TV.
I know. But I want to just really want to reiterate a few things before we leave, that it is really important that men have space to heal, to be the men and the warriors, and not warriors as fighters, but the men and the warriors who they were meant to be. And it is so important because of colonization. And yes, women we go through this as well. But it seems that we're a little bit more vulnerable, and we are a little bit more open to having these conversations with other people. And maybe not other people, but with, whoever that we feel comfortable about having and talking about our traumas and our abuses and things like that, whereas men has always been pushed aside. And so I really just want to thank you, Doug, that, you've been vulnerable as well to come up here and to talk about your experiences, but also to talk about that it is time that men take their role in society to be not only the protectors and the warriors, but to be healthy men. We cannot learn how to be healthy unless we are shown how to be healthy.
Mm-hmm.
You spoke a little bit about your spirit, and when that spirit is being fed, it becomes overwhelming how much your spirit wants to be fed, and not only fed but nurtured. And just going for a walk and seeing the expanse of the universe, that
Mm-hmm.
an awful lot, but taking that time. But I just want to go back to to you. I'm a kind man, because I met you along this whole journey a long time ago, and you were going through some stuff as well, and you and I had quite a few conversations, but at that particular time too, you were also a leader in family group conferencing, and had gone to New Zealand as the representative.
I was actually Phoenix.
Phoenix? I thought,
yes.
okay.
Yeah. The people from New Zealand went there. Yeah.
Right. And, and so like, it's amazing to see all the things that, I learned from you. I learned from your wife. I learned from your new wife, and your new wife, and also to see the difference that you've made in your children, your grandchildren, and, and you're going to be a fantastic great grandfather, right? When that time does come, you and I are not that far apart from age and stuff, so I'm not trying to age you. I color my hair, you don't. But it's an amazing opportunity, and it is, when we're doing family group conferencing, when we're talking about restorative justice practices, these things have a real benefit, not only to keeping our men and our women out of jail, but also holding them accountable, right? That they're holding, yes, you're having to go through an awful lot of tough work when we're holding you accountable. And it means that people are going to, not necessarily, that are going to challenge you and make sure that you're answering, because you only have yourself to answer to at the end of the day. And how are you going to sleep at night, right? Knowing that you may have hurt somebody in the past, or that you've done something to another human being in the past, right? And men learn this from residential school. Men learned this in order to hold their position of power in the residential school, right? I know an awful lot of these things too, because I've experienced that as well at the hands of another man. And but knowing what I am now today certainly doesn't define me of what I was a long, long time ago. I learned from those things, and I see that people are broken because they didn't have those teachings, right? And I think that that's so important. So I'm just honored and so thrilled that we're still continuing this amazing work, and you're doing such amazing work in your area. And and there's so many school boards. I know where you go and visit quite often, and and Jen has been just such a huge supporter and is always doing stuff and really coming from that space and place. And this weekend I ended up, just because I love Peter Gabriel, and and he went and remastered Biko, and Biko was murdered in 1974, and he's a Black activist, and just something as simple as putting that song on Facebook, and then she turns around and says, "Oh my gosh, I know what my lesson on Tuesday is going to be." And having those conversations, right? And so you can really go with whatever we're saying in here, and Facebook, it has a great way of sharing information, but also with our Speak Up and Empower and our speaker series that Grandmother's Voice and Speak Up and Empower is doing, and Speak Up and Empower giving us the space that we're able to create this. So again, thank you. I just love you to pieces. And
thank you. I love you too. I just want to also add, I also took a new training in the past a year and a bit ago. I'm a grief recovery specialist. So I'm utilizing this new teaching that I have to incorporate it into this, and really realizing how to help people, because trauma is grief.
Yeah.
So let's get to the core reasons of your trauma. Let's talk about your grief. So I'm going to try to figure out how to incorporate that now within the program, the little bits that I can, other than actually doing the whole module of grief recovery, because I also do that as well. So, and that's just new for me, and I just love it. Love what the stuff that I do and how it's incorporated. It's how it's been that those pieces of feeding my spirit, and I just want to share that outward. So with all people, not just men within grief recovery, because we all are carrying grief. Every
That's
one of
right.
us. So, right.
That's
so,
right.
And Doug, in saying that too, you have your own business, so you know that's a big part of what Grandmother's Voice is doing as well. It's just like sharing people that you know what they offer to community. And so his company is called Onigula, and you can reach him at the email address that we put below, and then you can also see him on our Grandmother's Voice website if you didn't write down this email address, or you can go back and watch this video over again. Again and again and again.
So I'll just put a little plug in for Onigula then before we close. It means that like we hold all our information. It's all here. So the bigness, the vastness of our minds. So it's about healing. So I also do sweat lodges. I've been doing that for almost 30 years. I was a firekeeper for many years, then became a conductor. I also, my last sweat lodge that I built, I actually had two-spirited person to come and help us. So it was male, female putting this together, the two-spirited tying it together. And when that happened, 13 turkey vultures come and landed around us. I'm going, holy crap. So there's the 13 grandmother moons acknowledging us. So we're doing something right. Creation is saying, here's our blessings. So I also do sound vibration. I'm a Reiki practitioner. I do this with my partner, and sound vibrations, alternative ceremonies to help deep-rooted trauma. So I'm quite busy, but I love what I do. And somebody said, one of the comments was, I hope you take care of yourself. I do every day. Every day I take care of myself. I love myself so much that that's a requirement for me to sit down and just, I'll watch some sci-fi for an hour or a little bit longer just to shut my mind off. And sometimes I'll play Candy Crush on my phone just because I like to think about things and process things, and I need a distraction from the outside world so I can stay here. So Onigula is something that really is my heart. So thank you for that.
Magic we're creating.
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
I say that all the time about our culture and the magic. It's awesome.
And one other thing is that I've really learned from all this is the more that you are good at this, the more that you heal yourself and love yourself, the more that it goes outward. Like, because you can't love out there unless you love here. That's an illusion if you do that. So I have been, over the past couple of months, I've been approached by other men, not just Native men, but non-Native men, wanting to, can we do a men's group? Can we hold space for one another? I'm going, how can I find time for that? But let's figure this out. So more and more men right now are embracing their healing journeys. Like even in our alternative ceremonial practices, it's dominantly women want to fix themselves. But now I'm starting to see more and more men going, I want to take a chance on myself. I want to see inside of myself. Can you help me? Let's do it.
Onigula Lodge training, something or other. Train them all, right? Keep sharing. That's what it's about.
For all people. For all
yes,
people.
For all people. That's the,
so, in our culture, men are supposed to hold the women up, right? Because they're not because they're better than men, but because they bear children. So that's why we hold them up. And we're supposed to remember that. We're not supposed to just dump them off the ground like that. We hold them up, and to remember that's our responsibility, but also it's the women's responsibility to remind us when we're not doing this properly.
Mhm.
So as when we become in a good place within our hearts and our heads, we can actually take that and go, oh, I'm sorry, I'll
Mhm.
fix it up a little bit, as opposed to say, well, if you didn't, if you
Yeah.
wasn't,
Mhm.
right? So we are getting there slowly,
Mhm.
but we are getting there. I see it more and more every day.
Yeah. Well, even in our lifetime, right?
Mm-hmm.
From what has happened in the last 20, 30 years has really changed and shifted. So can you imagine when you are a great grandfather? All those
I'm never
wonderful
going to
things that are
retire
going to
from
be there.
doing this work.
No,
Ever.
no,
Never.
no, no,
Never.
no.
I'll be trying to do Kijay on my deathbed, for crying out loud, or trying to help somebody. Just come over here. Let me give you my final words of wisdom.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. You're awesome.
So thank
Thanks
you.
for your
And thank you,
time.
girl. Thank you, ladies, for doing this, because I have been watching. I haven't been able to participate too much. You know, my own life is quite busy, but I have been watching, and I'm so proud of you guys. It's just totally amazing what you guys are
Mhm,
doing. So grandmother's
mhm.
voices, shout them out.
Yeah,
Shout it out.
yeah. Shout it out from the rooftops.
Absolutely. The treetops. Remember, we're going to
The
shake the
treetops.
trees.
Yeah, the treetops. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Shaking the trees. I
Shaking the
love it.
trees. Yes.
Mhm.
Amazing. Doug, you're awesome. You have a place in my heart too, brother. Sherry, I love you. Everyone enjoy the blanket outside and go get some fresh air.
Mhm.
Yeah, to
We'll
finish
see you
shoveling
on
the
Thursday.
driveway.
See you on Thursday. Thanks for
Okay.
coming.
Mona.
Mona.